There are a few other methods that we're going to talk about in this video. So one of the methods that we can do with strings is if you have a string and we want to get an array of characters out of it, we can use the chararray. So for example, here I have my name, which is a string, and I want to get a character array out of it. So I can say char, let's say name array equal to new, equal to name dot to char array. Okay, and so this will convert it to a character array, and once I have it as a character array, I can use the enhanced for loop to say print the contents in uppercase letters. Print character class to uppercase, and we're going to call it on the character X. Okay. So here I'm taking the string and I'm saying give it to me as a character array. And sometimes you'll find that in Java that there are methods that exist that only take character arrays, and you might want to use these methods. So how do you get a name, which is a string, and convert it to a character array? Well, this method can do it for you. And so what I got was my string. I'll convert it to uppercase using this way of doing it. To char array method, there's another method which is a little confusing, kind of like the region matches how it was confusing, called get chars. And what this method does, it's going to get the characters in the string that you're calling it on from a beginning index and end index, but here this index is like one more than the one you actually want. And then what you do is you give it an array that you have already created, and you say where in this destination array you want to start putting things into in it. So let's take an example. Here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a char array called dest, and I'm just going to make it size 20. Okay, so let's say it's size 20, and I want to put stuff in it. So let's just create a quick for loop to populate with something. I++, and I'm just going to go to dest of I. I'm going to put dashes in all of them. So I'm just populating this array with some random data. Okay. Now, after I populated, what I want to do is I want to actually put part of my name, part of my string in there. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to name, and I'm going to say name. I want you to get me the characters in you, starting with location 0. Maybe I want to go up to the location of the at. So I'm going to say, I want you to go up to the location of the at, and it's not going to include that variable at that location. And I want you to start putting it in dest, and I want you to start putting it from location 3. And let's see what dest is going to look like. So let's say here for every char x in dest, let's print it out. Remember, we can't use system.out.println to print the array because it's an array. It's going to give us the address. That's why you have to use this for loop. Okay, so I want you to print me this character, and let's comment out what's underneath so it doesn't interfere. So the last thing that's getting printed is going to be the destination array. And let's look what it looks like. So here, the array initially was filled with dashes. That's what I did here. And then what it did, it went to the names string, and it got all the characters from 0 up to the location of the at. So it got my username. And then it went to the dest array, and it started putting it at location 3. So this is location 0, 1, 2, and then it started putting my name in there until it got done. So this is another method that's available that might come in handy. Another method is called concat. So concat, what it does, it takes a string and it concatenates it to the string you're calling it on. So it's kind of like the plus equal that we did before. But remember that strings are immutable. So what means is if I have a string, so let's say I have my, let's reset name here. If I just go to name and I just say name, I want you to do name plus equal dot. Let's print out. Here, what I did was I went to name and I said, name, I want you to append to yourself dot. So this was the same as saying name equal to name plus dot, right? So here, what this is doing, it's going to name and it's changing its content. Okay, so here I'm not mutating the string name. What I'm doing is I'm actually reassigning. I'm going to name and saying assign to yourself something different. If I had done something like name dot to uppercase, does this change name to be uppercase cat? It doesn't. Why? Because we manipulate, we can't change the name like this. What this does actually, it just gives us another string that is the uppercase representation. So if I was to print upper, I would get CAT all uppercase. Okay, now if I wanted to add something to name, you know, this is the simplest way we've been doing it. But what I can also do is I can go to name, and I'm just comment this out because I'm going to replace this line. I'm going to go to name, and if I just say concat, I want you to concatenate dog. Let's just see what this does. Nothing happened. So the string is still cat. Why? Because we said that methods that we call, like to uppercase, to lowercase, concat, they cannot mutate the string. But what I can do is I can say name equal. So just like this one, it's really doing a name equal to name dot concat. So what this is doing, it's taking the name cat, it's going to concatenate, add to it the word dog. Now it's cat dog, and then it's going to store it back into name. So this line is equivalent to this line, okay? But you could do it with the plus equal, or there's a method that you can use for it called the concatenate, the concat method. This is a nice method where if you have a character and you want to replace it with another character, you can do that. So I can go, for example, to name, and I'm going to say replace. And it's you can take a character or a string. So I'm going to say replace. Let's say replace every CA with, let's say, MA. Okay. And so it's going to replace that, and I'm going to get, oops, forgot the name equal. Numbers, strings are immutable. So I have to save it back. So now I got MA. And if it had more of them, it will replace all of the occurrences of it. Okay. So you can use the replace method to replace some characters with new characters. You can also use the trim method. What the trim method does, it removes any leading and trailing white space. So here, if I had, you know, a bunch of spaces and a bunch of spaces, and I tried printing this, I will get a bunch of spaces. But if I don't want that, what I can do is I can say name equal to name dot trim. So I'm going to trim it, and that's going to remove the extra spaces. This is nice if you're reading in from a file or reading in from user, like the system.in. Maybe there are extra spaces that you want to remove. So you can trim a string. Other methods that are available on string that are static methods is the value of. And what the value of does, it does kind of like what the parse methods do. So the parse methods, what they do when we saw them in an earlier video, is they take a string and they convert it to the data type that you want. So if you say parse int, you'll get an int back from a string. Now what this method does, it does the opposite. Because it's a method on the string class, it's going to give you back a string. So if you ask for the value of true, like a Boolean, and you want to get the string representation of that Boolean or a string representation of a number, you can do that. So if I come here and I say I want you to get me string dot value of, and I want you to get me the value of true. Let's print that out. That's going to give me back a string that is true. And you can have like a string here, like I could have string 5, for example, equal to string value of 5. I'm going to get a string out of it, and I can actually print the string or do whatever I need to do with it. So these are methods that are kind of useful, similar to the parse methods that we've seen earlier on. And so this is just an example that you can go over on your own. Okay, so for this part of the class, what I want you to do is write a program that asks the user for a string. The program is going to read it in, and it's going to do some statistics. So I want you to use the methods that we learned, like on the character class, to determine how many letters are uppercase, how many are digits, how many are white space, and to print those out. And then I also want you to tell me the location of all the E letters that are there. And I want you to use an array list to collect the locations. So you're going to create an array list of integer objects, and you're going to use that to collect the location of all the E's, and then follow the output that's on HackerRank and test your code and submit it on Blackboard.